good evening and welcome to News Hour. My name is Daphne Zainab Kamar. Coming up in this edition of the news, Parliament's Public Accounts Committee concludes nationwide probe into the activities of local councils. President Bio calls on newly appointed diplomats not to misuse their privileges while serving. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Dr. Ali Kaba, signs the Book of Condolence for the late UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. All these stories and more, including sports, in this edition of the news. Stay with us. Welcome to News Hour. For our first story tonight, President Julius Maada Bio has called on high commissioners, ambassadors and financial attachés not to misuse or abuse diplomatic privileges while serving abroad. The president rather encouraged them to use it as an efficient tool to facilitate productive bilateral relations between Sierra Leone and the countries they are accredited to. He made a call at an induction training of newly appointed high commissioners, ambassadors and financial attachés at the Foreign Affairs Ministry Conference Hall, Tower Hill in Freetown. Hawa Mosiri has more.
Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation has its mandate in line with the 1991 Constitution, which states that the foreign policy objectives of the state shall be the promotion and protection of the national interest and the promotion of sub-regional, regional and inter-African cooperation and unity. President Julius Maada Bio said the induction ceremony signifies a new and vibrant foreign policy approach for Sierra Leone, as ambassadors and high commissioners must have a clear focus on promoting favorable developments and trade relations. The new path, according to President Bio, must be progressive, results-oriented and disciplined, calling on them to put their country's first extolled potentials for good in the international system.
Today, our assembly here marks a defining moment in the history of our nation and a major turning point for my administration's foreign policy trajectory. This induction ceremony signifies a new and vibrant foreign policy approach for Sierra Leone. As ambassadors and high commissioners, you must have a clear focus on promoting favorable development and trade relations that are consistent with evolving global trends for our long-term national economic development.
In an increasing globalized world and a constantly changing modern diplomatic environment, the external affairs of countries have been complex and rapidly evolving, he added. The president said emerging regional and global peace and security issues now demand that governments be quick, agile and comprehensive when navigating the waters of international diplomacy and foreign relations.
Together, we have chosen to lead this nation on a new path. This new path must be progressive, result-oriented and disciplined. We must put our country first and extol our potential as a force for good in the international system. It cannot be business as usual, as you know. The people of this country deserve better. We have to be the gold standard and consistently work to deliver on our promises. I now have the pleasure to officially declare the 3 days orientation workshop for high commissioners and ambassadors organized by our foreign ministry
The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Dr. Ali Kaba, said the Foreign Affairs Ministry has been unable to make major imprints on the foreign and the international scene in order to earn the country the much-needed foreign direct investment and recognition in the sub-region, Africa, and the world at large.
Broad outlines of our foreign policy can be achieved by A. Developing a clear foreign policy objective that articulates the critical areas mentioned above. B. Improving the low capacity of our diplomats through mediums such as this induction and training, ongoing training, which stimulate cross-fertilization of ideas, plans, and programs.
The induction training ends on Saturday. SLBC TV News are in Freetown. How must we reporting?
Sierra Leone is one of the countries in Africa that has contributed a contingent of police officers deployed in the war-torn Somalia. The Sierra Leone police is part of forces under the flag of the African Union mission in Somalia, AMISOM. The country joined the mission in 2013 but later refrained from sending troops to Somalia following the Ebola outbreak. Early this year, Sierra Leone sent over 150 police officers to help restructure the Somali police force. Our own Hawabari was in Mogadishu.
It's 7:30 a.m. in Mogadishu, Somalia, and the police unit of AMISOM are getting ready for their daily routine in Mogadishu, where explosions are expected at every moment. Somalia, formerly known as the Somali Democratic Republic, is a country located in the Horn of Africa. It was an important center for commerce with the rest of the ancient world. The African Union Mission in Somalia, or AMISOM for short, is an active regional peacekeeping mission operated by the African Union with the approval of the United Nations. It is mandated to support the restructuring of governance institutions like the police force, the judiciary, and many more. The mission has helped draw a national security plan and has also trained the Somali security forces. Sierra Leone has had a long history of professional policing, where her police force had helped train other forces in the world, and its presence is felt in Somalia as one of the police forces working hard to bring peace to a country that has known war for decades now and help rebuild the Somalia police force. How are officers selected to join peacekeeping missions abroad?
There is a process. There is a process which they undergo from recruitment to final deployment to the missions. And for the IPOs, they are given exams by the African Union. Like the African Union, they conduct an assessment for mission service, wherein they send officers back home to conduct those exams. And after going through successfully the process, then they are ready for deployment.
Majority of the Sierra Leone contingent in Somalia is stationed in Kismayo in Jubaland in the south of Somalia. There are others who hold strategic positions in the mission in Somalia. Chief Superintendent of Police LITHO LAMIN is the deputy head of training at AMISOM.
We had our own war, and we learned a lot of lessons during our war. And during that period, UN went to Sierra Leone, and most of us were fortunate to be trained by them. So when we had the opportunity after the war, when we came here, so those expertise which we borrowed from UN during our own tenure, when we had a conflict in our country, we were able to impact it now here in Somalia, and the Somalis are benefiting, because we enrich them with knowledge and skills, that will make them, best police officers in their own making.
Some of the Sierra Leone individual police officers in Mogadishu performed extremely well that when their contract ended, the mission asked them to continue their service to the mission. Chief Superintendent Bakar S. Koroma is one of them. He is in the monitoring, evaluation and reporting unit of AMISOM. He works closely with Christine Alalo, acting AMISOM Police Commissioner. He suggests that with the experience gained in the mission, officers should be given the opportunity to pass on the knowledge gained during their peacekeeping operation.
You go out there and you are fortunate to learn something which you have not been doing back home. When you get back, it is but mandatory for authorities to deploy you where you can perform those duties. Maybe you can perform them better.
Inspector Anne-Marie Kamara joined the AU mission in 2013. Because of the brilliant performance and excellent work, the mission extended her contract.
Back home, if you end your mission, you are not entitled to come till after 4 years. But because of my impact, what I created in the mission decided to request for me back. I deployed in January this year.
The adage that a prophet is respected unless in his village is an apt description of the Sierra Leone police in the country, though its personnel are respected in Somalia. But why is this case?
You know, in your own country, you have lots of people complaining about police activities. But then I believe that when these officers have served in missions and they come back, they improve on the conditions and behaviors of police officers back home. And I believe that we are still doing our best, but then we must have our detractors.
Sierra Leone is one of 3 police contributing countries providing a contingent of farm police units to Somalia after Uganda and Nigeria. Apart from the FPUs, there are also individual police officers who mentor the Somali police forces. These are some of the Sierra Leone individual police officers who every day board these members to Mogadishu to mentor the SPF. This is part of their daily routine here in Mogadishu. It's over 10 years since AMISOM deployed in Mogadishu. Reporting for SLBC, Hawabari, Mogadishu, Somalia.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Dr. Ali Kaba, has signed the Book of Condolence for the late UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. Mr. Annan is the 7th UN Secretary General and served from 1997 to 2006. He died on the 18th of August at the age of 80. Hawana Tukante filed in this report, read by Salma Taba.
Announcement of the death of former United Nations Secretary General Ghanaian-born Kofi Annan on August 18th, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Dr. Ali Kaba, signed a book of condolence at the Ghanaian High Commission at Spur Road. Dr. Ali Kaba said the late diplomat from West Africa is considered a man who flew the flag of Africa very high, and even at death he is held in high esteem by Africans and non-Africans. The minister said Sierra Leone is mourning together with Ghana, adding that the country will continue to cooperate with Ghana as it has always been. He said the late man has left a legacy that will continue to inspire generations on the continent. The Ghanaian High Commissioner to Sierra Leone, Francis Abaka, disclosed that discussions are ongoing among family members to confirm final funeral arrangements. The late Kofi Annan served as United Nations Secretary General from 1997 to 2006.
The regional tribunals for Yugoslavia and Rwanda, and eventually...
May his soul rest in peace. The Deputy Minister of Internal Affairs has ended a tour to the border towns in 8 districts across the country. It was the first visit to the border towns by Lahai Lawrence Lima since he was appointed as Deputy Minister of Internal Affairs. The Ministry of Internal Affairs supervises the police, immigration and prisons. On his return to Freetown, Asmiuba caught up with the Deputy Minister and started by asking him to explain more about the reasons for his visit to the border towns.
Well, was to see first how best we are able to strengthen in internal security, starting from the boundary areas, of course, which you also know that border security. And when I was appointed by His Excellency the President and in Parliament, one of the MPs from those border communities raised issues as to, or asked the question, what would be my strategy in curbing challenges regarding border security, citing reference to instance where they had people actually with shotguns entering into our territories from the Liberian side. And so I told her that my first approach would be like going on the ground physically to assess the situation firsthand and come back, put reports together, perhaps with a design project proposal for government to be able to come in. And so actualizing that promise to our MPs in the House of Parliament during the period of my approval, I decided to discuss it with my boss when I started working, and he gave his blessing to it, and I put my concept together, forward to the Ministry of Finance, and they supported it. So I've just concluded it all, and I took your media houses and other media houses along so that the ideas will be able to put to public, so that we can also have agencies work along government to be able to help in line with whatever recommendation we'll be coming up with, so that we are able to collectively work towards the challenges.
Our borders are dotted with crossing points, illegal crossing points. Did you see any of these crossing points?
Well, we went to the officially manned crossing points, and they will give you an estimation of how many crossing points that are in those districts, and then they will tell you how the illegal activities do occur, especially in the dries, especially for areas that are riverine. When we're in the dries, of course the water level will actually go down, and then that will give the opportunities to the locals in the neighboring country to be able to fly through routes without passing through the official routes. And so if they give you a number, a quantity of crossing points in that particular district, and then you have fewer crossing points where officially we have our personnel deployed manning those ones, then people who are engaging in illegal activities will not come through the officially manned areas. They will go through the other areas that are not officially manned. I was not actually opportune to go physically to be able to see the areas that are unmanned, but those areas where we have personnel, I was able to visit.
So did you also tell me, for instance, the Sierra Leone-Liberia border, how many illegal crossing points that we have?
Well, for areas, of course, that are not manned, certainly it's bound that people will engage in illegal activities. I have actually decided not to put the number of crossing points we have that are not manned for perhaps security reasons. But what is clear is that there are a number of porosity.
Are they cause for concern?
Well, sure.
With someone with a security eye?
Sure, they are cause for concern, and the very reason we have to heighten civic education regarding the information sharing with security stakeholders, with the locals. Because once we have actually security personnel deployed on the ground, even though they are unable to man all of those areas people are engaging in cross-border activities, we would also educate our locals to be able to understand practices that are not approved or acceptable by government, so that they share the information with the security stakeholders for them to be able to react swiftly to address some of these situations.
Did you talk to the security forces on the either side of our borders, the Liberian or the Guinean side?
I was unable to talk to the Guinean side, but on the Liberian side, when I got to Jendema, I was privileged to cross over to the border side, for which of course there had been an arrangement with the security apparatus over there. So on my arrival, I was taken across to the Liberian side, and the Liberian head of immigration took me across their system, and of course he was able to preview me to equipment they have in terms of electronic or digitalization of their own system, their own administrative structure. Yes, it was well upgraded to the the trend that will actually take care of 21st century security situation along border.
Ours is not up to that level.
Well, what I actually viewed from our own side is largely manual. It's largely manual. So ideally, if you don't have our security personnel physically present on the ground, then it's always a problem. In terms of even checking for fake documents, it's just what I noticed from our own side is the physical check. For them, they have a complex electronic system that they will put those documents, any document into, and then that machine will be able to give result as to whether the document is a fake document or it's an authentic document, for which we don't have. Each and every personnel deployed on their own side has at least a VHF set, which you hardly find on our own side. So this is actually serious, because when you talk of security, you talk of communication. When you talk of security, you also consider the routes, the main supply routes leading to those border environments. So these are all serious concerns for which, of course, we took note of, and we are almost concluded now the report, which we will actually put forward, and I will submit to my boss, and I will share with the other partners.
The much talked about Yenga has resurfaced, and people are asking so many questions about what is happening in Yenga. Did you visit Yenga? If yes, what did you see?
Well, myself, I have not been quite clear about the story of Yenga, when, of course, people have been discussing them. Even while I was still in the military, I was not too clear about the story regarding Yenga until I got there physically myself. When I got to Yenga, I realized that because for many of the other areas I tried to really get to the border point, you will like stand on the Sierra Leone side, and then you see on the neighboring part, you see the state security apparatus on the other side watching on our own part, and our own side, people watching on the other side. When I got to Yenga, like where the security makeshift was located, we walked about 120 meters off that before we got to the river, where we stood, and then we saw the Guinean people, or the Guinean security stakeholders, on the other side of the river, watching across the other side of the river on the Sierra Leone side. But at the river side, we haven't got any of our state entity representing us at the border side on the river side. So, like whatever obtains within that river side, up to the distance we walked from where we have the security makeshift, you wouldn't notice anything that would be happening.
So is that a buffer zone?
Well, that was what I noticed from when I was talking from Lamobakali yesterday, and being a security man, that was also my conclusion, that perhaps this area has been declared a buffer zone, even though the Guineans are on the other side of the river, but then they are overlooking what obtains in this environment, unlike our own security personnel who do not even know what is going on from that side where they are onto the river side.
Do they have any military presence there? I mean the Guinean security forces?
Well, I saw actually people on the other side, security personnel on the other side. But to say in terms of equipment, like display of equipment, that I didn't see. But for me, even when I was also told that the boats that ferry people that across the river from the Guinean side to the Sierra Leone side, are people from the Sierra Leone side pay money to the Guineans. I saw that as an economic exploitation, to which such proceeds is not actually coming to our government. And if the river is actually to be taken as the naturally defined boundary between Sierra Leone and Guinea, then I found it as an economic exploitation for people coming from the Sierra Leone side to pay for boats that the Guineans are in control of, and the Guineans also overseeing some portion of our land, of our inland territory, onto the point where the security deployment is. So I found that as a threat to our territorial integrity and also to the security of this country. And I also learned that there has been diplomatic discussions around the Yenga issues, but the Yenga issues still remain as it is. So it is my recommendation to government now that we perhaps reinitiate discussions around Yenga, so that we see how best we are able to resolve that diplomatically. And for me, where diplomatic resolution fails, let's at least try the ECOWAS court for arbitration, and let's be serious about it, because we have to give or restore the dignity of our people living in that border community.
And finally, what's the high point of your visits, both to the Sierra Leone and the Guinean borders?
Well, if you talk about high point, of course I visited the major crossing point, but I want to take Balamuya, the Liberian Buwater side, Jendema, because on the Buwater side, because on all other areas I visited, I only stopped at the Sierra Leonean side of the border. But at Jendema, I was privileged to be taken across to the Liberian side, for which I was privy to their own system, and I was able to learn from their own system, and at least I was put in a better position to be able to make recommendations that will equate us with the Liberian system of immigration, or at least go beyond them if the economic situation will allow us, or we could have donor agencies to help us have a very digitalized immigration system on our border areas.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, now we need some short.
Deputy Minister of Internal Affairs, Lahai Lawrence Lima. World Servants Netherlands selfless volunteers from Holland have officially handed over the newly constructed KAMBIA District Council Primary School to the executive of the Cotton Tree Foundation. The event, which took place at the school's premises in KAMBIA, was well attended by the authorities and stakeholders in KAMBIA. Esther Marie Samoa reports.
World Servants is an international volunteer organization on a Protestant Christian basis. It assists developing countries by supporting the realization of necessary buildings such as schools and clinics done by the young Dutch people themselves. Some of these young people arrived in Sierra Leone earlier this month through the help of Country Foundation, an advocacy group focused on education and agriculture, and constructed a building for pupils of the KAMBIA District Council Primary School.
This is the KAMBIA District Council Primary School in KAMBIA District. The school is currently in a deplorable state, and Country Foundation are here to preliminarily hand over the newly constructed building to the school authorities.
Presenting the case to Joan Camara, Chief Executive Officer of Quantity Foundation, Ches Vasquez, team leader, said they had a wonderful time constructing the building and encouraged the beneficiary to utilize it well. Joan Camara, Chief Executive Officer of Quantity Foundation, said her organization focused on supporting programs that contribute to sustainable poverty reduction through the realization of socially functional buildings for needy communities.
When I came this morning, I entered that place, I almost shed tears. It's so pathetic to see our children schooling in such an environment. You've created this facility for them. And I know this facility will not only benefit the pupils, but it will also motivate the teachers to stay longer in the class. So give your best. We believe in education as an organization. We know education will help us. It will boost our economy. It is important in the economic development of our nation. The more educated you are, the more options, career options you have.
One of the teachers at the school, Wulematu Kamara, appreciated the timely move by World Servant and Quantity Foundation for constructing the structure.
We are very happy over it because we've been suffering for how many years, coming to school without having a nice place to sit down with the children. Every day when we come to school, we are not happy the way we find ourselves there. But by the grace of God, we thank God today we got a new building.
The participants had an interactive time with the community children. The stakeholders and community people sang songs of praise for the donors. Esther Marie-Sama, SLBC TV.
The Ministry of Trade and Industry has updated journalists on issues of trade, local content, among others. The Minister of Trade and Industry, Peter Conte, said this regime is committed to promoting made-in-Sierra Leone products. He made the statement at the Ministry of Information and Communications Conference Hall in Freetown. Joseph Ture filed in this report.
Exporting locally produced items helps to build the economy of the country, and regulating our food production is essential for best practice. According to the Minister of Trade, Peter Bayuku Conte, the SLPP inherited a very disorganized, corrupt and incompetent ministry with no system in place. He noted that they would need 2 years to reform a new system in the ministry. Mr. Conte also disclosed that the ministry will recruit specialized staff and build capacity, and they will formulate and review 21 policies together with the Ministry of Finance. The minister assured all that the ministry would promote made-in-Sierra Leone products, ensure better trade, and create open markets to allow healthy competition for businesses.
This is the government that is here to relieve the suffering of the masses. Let us trust this president, as he has what it takes to transform this nation for good.
He added that they would promote concept of one industry and open a new petrol jetty in Kisi, and asserted that they would establish 3 regional centers to decentralize the distribution of fuel. The minister added that they would promote small and medium enterprise. According to the Executive Director, Sierra Leone Standards Bureau, Engineer James Dumbuya, the Bureau would go metric in commerce agenda trade sector. He disclosed that they will sensitize the public on the use of the standardized COP measures to avoid fraudulent COPs in the market. Mr. Dumbuya said they have established a national standards laboratory comprising a microbiology laboratory and full chemical laboratory. He noted that the Bureau would ensure food safety for consumers.
National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, in collaboration with some stakeholders in different communities, have organized awareness-raising sessions for youths and school pupils on the misuse of drugs on the theme "No to Drugs, No to Harmful Drugs, and No to Misuse of Drugs." The engagement of community stakeholders is for the need to stop the harmful use of drugs and to ensure that school pupils are not involved in the act. Millicent Lunge filed in this report.
The organization targeted 18 communities within Brook Street, Kobe, Robert Street, and others around the Central Business District. These are areas more prone to drug abuse. The sensitization is coming at a time when young people, especially school-going children, misuse drugs. And the focus of this sensitization is to no to drugs, no to harmful drugs, and no to misuse of drugs. The engagement of the community stakeholders in collaboration with the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency is to ensure that they stop the harmful use of drugs and ensure that school pupils are not involved in this harmful practice. According to the Public Relations Office of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Ibrahim Kagbo, before arresting young people, it is better to sensitize them about the reactions of tramadol, marijuana, and other drugs.
Meaning that we are not only, targeting the pupils, but also the youths in the community. We are also targeting them, young people in the community. We also want to talk to them. We also want to see how best we can persuade them not to go into drugs. And for those who have already gone into it, to see how best we can talk to them as well, to come out of it so that they can live a clean life.
He maintained that they become immune to drugs and it leads to mental health, and the possibility for them to be successful and productive becomes very slim. He said that parents should always be watchful of their children and should not allow them to abuse drugs. Youth Chairman Robert Street, J.L. Durin, maintained that young people nowadays misuse drugs because they are idle.
As a youth of Robert Street, I'm asking my fellow youths to refrain from drug abuse and be sober-minded. I'm therefore calling on all youths and school pupils not to misuse drugs, and that drug abuse leads to wrong things which are not good for our society.
The The investigator of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Abdullahi Bangura, said they are partnering with the courts, police and other stakeholders to ensure that young people caught in the act of misbehaving in the streets and even around their environment are dealt with accordingly. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency has embarked on this exercise to ensure that young people are not involved in drug abuse.
Residents of Dibia Chiefdom Karine district have appealed to their kith and kin who are in government to help the chiefdom with basic amenities. They made a special appeal during a meeting with stakeholders of the chiefdom. Daphne Kimamakoli filed in this report.
Binti is in Dibia Chiefdom Karine district, northern Sierra Leone. This Muslim-dominated community is engaged in trading and agriculture as their source of livelihood. At the moment, the chiefdom has top government officials like the Minister of Health and Sanitation, Dr. Alpha Tijan Wuri, the Speaker of Parliament, Dr. Abbas Bundu, and the Ambassador-at-Large, Ambassador Umaru Bond Wuri, among others. The occasion was not only to celebrate these people, but to also bring forward problems faced by the community. Among the problems listed during the meeting are the poor road network, lack of water, electricity, hospital, and a vocational institute to prevent youth from engaging in violence. The roads are not tarred, the reason why the people say it's difficult to travel long distances. This is the only clinic they can boast of. Even this one lacks the paraphernalia of a proper clinic. They find it difficult to treat serious illnesses and appealed to their son, who is now the Minister of Health and Sanitation, to help them get a hospital. Responding, the Minister of Health and Sanitation, Dr. Alpha Wuri, addressed the issue of youth violence and promised to upgrade the clinic. He said the Sierra Leone People's Party, through them, will address some of their concerns.
Political games, we don't make it. We are here because of politics.
We are here because of the political gains we have made, and we were able to achieve this because of your prayers. It is now time for us to continuously pray and be united to develop our community and our chiefdom. I am in a better position to help pregnant women and children. Now we are asking you to give us the land between now and December. We will construct the hospital.
The list of 80 where the SLPP make.
The Dibia Chiefdom is well known for the Wuri, Jar, and Bundus, respected families in the Fula community. Now that members of these families are at the helm of government, their people are expecting them to bring changes in their communities, more so when the third gentleman of the state is a son of theirs. For SLBC News, Daphne Kimamakoli reporting.
Well, in case you've just joined us, this is News Hour coming to you live on SLBC Television in Freetown. The Mayor of Freetown City Council, Yvonne Akisoya, has called on people within the municipality to pay their tax for the council to embark on more development programs in the city. She was speaking during the symbolic handing over of local tax to Tribal Heads and Slum Dwellers Association with the aim of encouraging people to buy local tax. Dorian Barry reports.
This symbolic handover of local tax to Tribal Heads and Slum Dwellers Association by the local council is to ensure full compliance by their subjects to pay their taxes. It could be recalled that over the years, lack of confidence and the mismanagement of monies collected from the payment of tax by the council had prevented people from complying. However, the Freetown City Council, in its tries to transform the city, has promised to effect changes and ensure service delivery from taxes that will be collected. The mayor of the Freetown City Council, Yvonne Akisoya, said that they have come to realize the respect people have for their tribal heads and authorities within their localities, which is why their involvement in the sales of tax is relevant. She spoke about plans to transform the city to a modernized one, calling on the people to pay their taxes for such to be achievable. She outlined different approaches by the council on the collection of dirt and waste, adding that they have consulted a company for the recycling of plastics and plants to remove dump site from the main city to a secluded place. She said that plans are underway for people to start paying their taxes from mobile phones. Secretary General of Tribal Heads, Chief Jibawo Young, said that it's their mandate to support the council on the sales of local tax to their subjects. He said that over the years they had been sidelined by the council, which was why they had not been active on the sales of tax, adding that they are determined to change the mindset of the people to comply. He spoke about challenges faced by the people in the city to pay their taxes, calling for stringent measures to be put in place for those who might not want to comply.
Office of National Security has officially opened its regional workshop to address the deteriorating youth situation in terms of lawlessness, indiscipline, and the implications on national security. The workshop, which was launched on Thursday at the Police Mess in Kingstown, will be held in Kenema, Bo, McKinney, and Potloko. Esther Marie Samora has more.
Security has been a grave concern to authorities in the security sector in the country. The Office of National Security, at a workshop organized for youth in the Western area, has been engaged in massive sensitization in curtailing the increase of lawlessness in the country. Delivering his statement, the Director General of the Serum Correctional Service, Sanfa Bilo Kamara, said many of the inmates at the Correctional Service are youth that were involved in crimes and were charged based on intensity of lawlessness. He gave a rundown on the current inmates at the Correctional Service.
A total of 4,445 inmates were on lockdown countywide, categorized as follows. The convicted is 2,066. Those on remand is 6,086. Those on trials 1,662. I also found out that majority of this mentioned in those categories are largely youths.
Giving his keynote address, the National Coordinator at the Office of National Security, retired Brigadier General Jaltoka, said the current crop of youth should be guided. According to him, they at the ONS are concerned about the increase in youth violence in the country.
Our youths channeling their passion and creativity in a positive way. Are they making society any better off by their activities, individually or collectively? If those who are at the end of affairs, now we are to hand over the mantle of leadership, will our youth be prepared to take it up and move Senegal forward? These are some of the tough questions that we would have to answer sooner or later.
The workshop was well attended by state authorities and participants. Esther Marisama, SLBC TV.
Since the mudslide disaster when part of the Mount Sugarloaf collapsed, over 1,000 people were reported dead. The world has recorded the August 14th flood and mudslide as one of Africa's worst disasters. SLBC's George Lewis has been compiling developing stories looking at the daily life of some survivors in the Motome community.
1 year now since the August 14 mudslide, citizens are still unable to know the amount of lives that were lost or the property destroyed. Underneath this rubble lay souls of people who went to bed that Sunday night, only to be greeted by a heavy explosion and mudslide. Properties worth billions of loans are buried under the mud. Meet with Stephen Tito Pele, one of the survivors of the August 14 disaster. He had just acquired a piece of land and constructed his house, but was washed away by the flooding. He moved his family into the new house and decided to pass the night alone in his shop at Motome. His family was trapped under the mud.
1 o'clock, the customer come and knock the door. Say, Stephen, wake up. Say, wake up. He say, run to the house. But they didn't tell me what happened. So myself, I just left everything and run. As I reach up where the mud is, that place, I see everything flat.
Mr. Pele is currently staying in the eastern part of Freetown. Stephen is looking forward to receiving government compensation as promised. In his speech during the memorial service, President Bio pledged government's commitment to assist the survivors and that the site will be converted to a national tourist memorial park.
When we received the red alert warning from the UNAS about another imminent and catastrophic mudslide that will lead to another tragedy, I immediately directed the formation of the interagency mudslide committee chaired by no less a person but the Chief Minister. And I must stress here that this is what inclusive governance is all about. That we do not only care for the people who live in danger, but also to engage the people in the communities on the decisions that affect their lives.
Few months ago, the government compensated house owners who were close to the red zone and ordered their houses to be demolished. Another survivor, Maligi Kamara, lost everything. His son lost one of his legs. Mr. Kamara disclosed that some of them were given houses, but the rent is too high, and to make matters worse, he said they are jobless. At Mile 6, where they were relocated, nearly all social amenities like medical facilities, schools or markets are non-existent. The Environment Protection Agency has already identified 42 disaster-prone areas in Freetown. The growing number of population in the city continues to pose a threat to the environment as people continue to build houses around disaster-prone areas. Dr. Njai is a visiting professor from the United States who specializes in biological science.
Across Freetown, there is potential for even more of these landslides happening. And actually, we're still seeing very uncontrolled informal settlements all across the city. And so you have that combination, and Freetown is prone to heavy rains because we receive almost, it's about the third country in the world that receives this much rain.
Dr. Dennis Sandi is the Minister of Lands, Housing and Environment.
They have two categories of disaster-prone sites down Motome. You have the red zone. The red zone is, of course, calls for immediate intervention. And then you have the yellow zone. So, of course, the cleared area is the red zone that, of course, comprises of about 86 structures or more because some were in compounds enclosed. So we have taken care of that because that is really where the action took place the last time.
It is hoped that government will take an urgent action to increase the sensitization messages to the rural areas in order to reduce rural-urban migration.
The Public Accounts Committee of Parliament has ended a nationwide exercise probing into queries of the 2016 Auditor General's report on local councils. A lot of anomalies were uncovered for which most council officials were unable to give convincing explanations with supportive evidence to the committee. Nasiruddin Kuroma was with the committee and now reports.
The Public Account Committee, P.A.C, is the Parliamentary Oversight Committee that is mandated to look into how ministries, departments and agencies, MDAs, expense public funds to ensure that monies meant for development projects are used judiciously in accordance with set standards, processes and procedures. Over a period of 10 days, the Public Account Committee concluded that a lot of recklessness in local government administration in the country has left over 20 billion leones unaccounted for in just one financial year, 2016. The committee clustered councils by regions for an exercise that lasted for 10 days. The chairman of the Public Account Committee is Honorable Secretary Paul Solomon Thomas, who is also the Deputy Speaker of Parliament. Addressing council officials, said that the exercise was in the interest of the development of the nation. The committee discovered that senior management staff like the Chief Administrator, Finance Officer and Procurement Officer at each council for the financial year under review had expensed monies meant for development projects without following procurement procedures and flouting financial management regulations. The Deputy Chairman of the Public Account Committee, Honorable Lahai Mara, cautioned finance officers on financial regulations which they as professionals are to abide by. From the Auditor General's report, billions of leones had gone astray, leaving substandard and unimplemented projects in almost every local council, although anomalies vary from council to council. In Makini, the then finance officer Abdul Bangura of the Tonkololi District Council, now at the Makini City Council, could not convince the auditors nor the P.A.C on the variations in financial statements, bank statements and receipt books amounting to 600 million leones. Among other areas of queries by the auditors was the lack of adequate supporting documents. That disparity amounted to 1,085,513,000 leones. Abdul Bangura and other officials of the council were invited to Freetown for further probing. At the Kenema City Council, the Chief Administrator Vivian Senesi and the former Finance Officer David Kalon were asked to make a refund of over 7 million leones as revenue they collected in 2016, which was not banked as per regulation. The Kenema City Council officials failed to submit evidence of payments made by property owners amounting to 556 million leones. The P.A.C chairman had strong words for the council's administration.
Have yourself to blame for whatever mishap. This committee has all the authority to detain you, even as you sit here. This committee has the authority to detain you and to transfer you to Freetown. This committee has the authority to have you kept and charged to court. This committee has the authority to even pass judgment on you. This committee has the authority to even refer you to the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Chief Administrator Vivian Senesi could not make a convincing explanation on the use of public funds. CA Vivian Senesi also faced another tough engagement with the committee as it investigated the Bo District Council, where she was in 2016. She, together with others, was referred for further hearing in Freetown. The Bo City Council had more serious case than other councils within the southern region. Without wasting time, the P.A.C chairman, Honorable Thomas, made a ruling ordering the Bo City Council officials to be at Parliament first week in September. Councils were referred to further hearing on diverse dates between the 23rd of August and the 5th of September. The committee insisted that some council officials that had been referred to Freetown will end up with the Anti-Corruption Commission, while others will be at the Criminal Investigation Departments for further investigation if they fail to provide the requisite evidences to convince the members of the P.A.C. SLBC News, Nasiruddin Koroma.
Nene Ada Koroma, a Sierra Leonean painter, TV host and singer based in China and founder of Queen Nak Foundation, paid a visit to the First Lady, Mrs. Fatima Bio. Also in the entertainment news, the American singer CIARA has been accused of stealing a Nigerian artist's song. Let's join Mohammed King Milan Bangura.
Nene Adakoroma is a Sierra Leonean painter, TV host and singer based in China. About 5 years ago, Ada formed a foundation called Queen Nak Foundation to help the less privileged people. Queen Nak, as she is popularly called, has decided to embark on a campaign against domestic violence. Queen Nak recently visited the First Lady of Sierra Leone, Mrs. Fatima Jabibio, to introduce herself and her project to her. Queen Nak expressed how happy she was in meeting the First Lady, whom she considered as a woman of substance and a mother of the nation. She spoke of a structure she is putting up at the Newton area to help children of the community go to school and also support the president's agenda in making the free education a reality. Later on Thursday, Nene Adayang donated 40 million leones to the First Lady to help support her project. The First Lady expressed her thanks and appreciation and promised to support her project. She advised her to make sure she concentrates on her project and promised to use the money for intended purpose, as the fight against domestic violence and girls' rights should be a must.
I know you ain't believe this life without you, baby.
CIARA has been getting buzz from her teaser single Level Up. CIARA released another promotional single called Freak Me, featuring Nigerian artist Techno. Nigerian fans have pointed out that CIARA's new song is very similar to TIWA's Savage song Before Encore, featuring Ice Prince. CIARA has been accused of stealing the hook of the song from TY Savage. CIARA recently went on Twitter showing love and respect for TY Savage talent. She says, "Shout out to TY Savage on the inspiration and the sample used in Freak Me. She's a beast. I fell in love with the melody when I first heard it in Africa 3 years ago. So good." Critics are commending CIARA for giving out shout-outs to TY Savage as she shows respect for her talent. We wholly hope that the Nigerian artist will receive royalties for her work.
And now to N News Hour, the main points again. Parliament's Public Accounts Committee has concluded a nationwide probe into the activities of local councils. President Bio has called on newly appointed diplomats abroad not to misuse their privileges while serving. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Dr. Ali Kaba, has signed the Book of Condolence for the late UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. Well, that's all in this edition of the news. Thanks for your company. My name is Daphne Zainab Kamar. Good night.